Hey everyone, this is Boss Heather again, and today I'm going to be making a list of my favorite black metal tracks. Now, this isn't really my overall favorite black metal tracks. As you know, it's very hard to really define tracks, even albums for some reason, and in fact it's even hard to define favorite bands in a specific genre even. So what we do is we categorize, we subcategorize, and we make subdivisions and stuff. So for this list, we have chosen the characteristic that is hypnotic black metal. Now, you know, hypnotic black metal isn't really a subgenre, but in fact it's just a stylistic category within atmospheric black metal. Now what these bands do is alright, let's just not get into more explanations, let's get into tracks. I'm just gonna give a little preview with the tracks so that you guys can also get introduced to these beautiful songs, and maybe you already know these songs or most of these songs, and well, do tell me if you have any favorites from this list, or if you know any similar songs that I might like as well. So yeah, let's check them out. So the first track in this list is by the German black metal band Farsot, and the track is called Empyrean. You know, my first exposure to Farsot was with their demo, which is an absolutely raw and primitive black metal demo. This album, though, Insects, is a very haunting black metal record. And now by haunting I mean hypnotic as well as very dark and still pretty evil. They managed to be still pretty evil with their sound. The album itself has got a very interesting theme to it. It is something like the insects are taking over the world, and there's basically nothing left of it after man has, you know, achieved self-destruction, and you know, the remaining part is being annihilated by insects themselves. So it's pretty fucked up, to say the least. And the thing I like most about this specific track is the hypnotic chants that it has, with the dystopian double bass pounding that is going on in the back. And chants are pretty clearly heard as well. I mean, you can actually understand what the guy's saying. And well, as a track, you guys should totally check this out, and also check the album out as well. I didn't really find a lot of standout tracks in the album as a whole, but this track in fact turned out and ended up making on this list. That means it's a wonderful track, and it is definitely one of my favorite black metal tracks as a whole as well. So do check this out. Alright, the next track that I'm going to talk about is by the US black metal band Krallice, and the track is called Forgiveness and Rot. Krallice basically plays a very technical form of black metal, and with technical, I would actually be pushing myself farther away from the Hypnotic black metal label, but with the sort of technical they play is they still manage to be repetitive, and the technicality is basically is in the structure. Now what happens is, it's not like Nagaroth. You see, Nagaroth didn't end up on my list. I respect that band. In fact, the album Jahrzeiten is one of my favorite black metal records of all time. And they also tend to make that hypnotic black metal feel, but they fail to do it with their minimal style, and because their idea of black metal is basically repetition. While, to be honest, it's not just repetition which makes your track, put the listener in a spell, under spell. So with Forgiveness and Rot, you actually get to hear repetition, but they actually succeed in creating that certain atmosphere, which basically qualifies for it to be hypnotic. It is very dark. It somehow reminds me of, noodling in outer space. Very good music. Okay, so this track that I'm going to talk about is by the Russian black metal band Walknut. Now I'm not sure how to pronounce this, if it's Walnut or Walknut, but regardless of that, this track is called Motherland Ostenvegr. Immensely epic black metal track. Now, Walknut has achieved a very cult status in the realms of black metal. They just released one album, and their members are basically involved in other very renowned and notorious black metal projects like Hate Forest and Rudr and a few others. I guess, yeah. And with this album, they created an atmosphere so raw, yet so hypnotically beautiful, that this album achieved cult status. And everybody who has something to do with atmospheric black metal at some point in their lives actually regard this band as real fucking gods. My favorite thing about this track is basically just everything. How the guitars are so loud in the mix, yet they give way perfectly to the drum beat, which are basically programmed. They don't really sound programmed, but there's a certain monotony to them, which actually really feels if you have some experience in programming drums or making music yourself, you'd actually realize that these are actually programmed drums. But that doesn't take away anything from the record itself, because the end result is absolutely supreme. The vocals are tortured shrieks, and they're mixed in a way that it actually sounds like they are being shouted from under a debris. And maybe it's a debris of, I don't know, a lot of trees or a lot of wood, and it's a hazy night, and it's actually beautiful music. You have to listen to it to actually know what I'm talking about, and it's hard to describe this kind of music because these fuckers paint such a beautiful picture in your head while you're listening to it that you can't really reproduce it in words. So I'm sorry about that. I should fucking end this thing right here, but... Okay, so the next track in this list is Avalon Polo by the very controversial and very notorious Velvet Cacoon. I don't really care about the controversies that surround this band. All I believe is that this album is the wrong, and it is absolutely wonderful music. It is very lo-fi, but not in a bedroom lo-fi kind of way. It is more like a very deliberately done lo-fi thing, and I guess this sort of music, and there's this constant fuzz and a constant static, which actually, it somehow, reveals you into a state of high just by the constant prick in your ears. And I'm not sure how to explain it, but it's some sort of a noisy high that you get after listening to this music. And another wonderful thing about this specific track is that the drums, they've been programmed in a way that they sort of match your heartbeat. And I don't know, when I say it, it sounds kind of pretentious, but it's actually pretty cool for a track. And I recommend this track to anybody who's going out on a walk on a December night in the woods. And I even recommend it if someone's wanting to listen to a track out in the sun on a July afternoon. So yeah, this track is pretty much effective whenever you're trying to get laid back and relax. And it's actually pretty beautiful and very dark and noisy and kind of scary too. And most of all, it's trippy as fuck, and that's what's important for this list. Okay, so the next track that I've chosen is from the French black metal band Blut, and the track is called from Hlidskjalf. Okay, so again, this is very lo-fi produced black metal, and the best thing about this track again is the chants, the fucking chants. They are so beautiful, and it's almost like they transform you to some ancient, I don't know, god meeting or some shit. It is beautiful, and there's this breakdown where there's a duel of the chant and a very echoey, creepy lo-fi synth, and I guess it's beautiful. Next comes the Swiss black metal act Paysage. This project has been around for more than a decade now, and it has obviously gotten a very cult status within black metal. And this guy only releases demos, which is pretty ridiculous, but it's still pretty amazing. But he's really consistent with that, so I mean, props to him for sticking to it for so long and not releasing a full album. But yes, the guy's music is absolutely amazing, and he has got a cult status, and everybody who has something to do with the atmospheric black metal has got the highest level of respect for this guy. And this track, Welt, which basically apparently means a world of ice. music of Paysage, however, you can actually feel winter in oral form. The highlight of this track for me is the violin that is played in various passages. Alright, so the next band is Darkspace with their track 3.13. Darkspace, you can say, is basically a sister band to Paysage. I guess it's a side project of one of the members who play in Darkspace as well. Darkspace actually paints an atmosphere of being alone in the outer space. The music portrays solitude perfectly, and some sort of a major intergalactic cosmic fuck up. That's what the music sounds like, but in a very full of despair and dark manner, and very chaotic. Okay, so the next band in the list is Walknut Throne Room with their track Ahrimanic Trance. This is pretty much the closest thing that you'd get to Hvis Lyset Tar Oss by Burzum. A very similar characteristic of Burzum's Hvis Lyset Tar Oss, with long chord progressions, a very laid-back synth in the background, and it actually sounds like it's been recorded in Hlidskjalf as well, but obviously it isn't. But they have got this certain Cascadian black metal style evolves in the throne room, but which is actually pretty cool. I mean, glorifying nature and earth worship and whatnot. But I guess from the bunch of bands which actually do that sort of thing in the USBM, Wolf in the Throne Room, I guess, is the only commendable band which is musically pretty nice too, apart from the imagery. Rest of the bands, I guess, they focus more on imagery and less on good music. So, what can you say? So the point of the list, okay, I could have made like a top 10 or top 12 or top 15 of my favorite black metal or hypnotic black metal or whatever black metal lists like you can actually find on YouTube. But the point of making this video is actually to say a few words about these bands, because obviously you have the certain attachment to these songs and these tracks and these bands in certain cases that you would actually love to express the feelings. Now, for most of these bands and most of these tracks, I couldn't find reviews or I couldn't find people talking about them. So I said, why not? And yes, I would actually love if you guys recommend me similar bands, and if I'm missing out on a few, or if you think that I would like a few bands or certain bands, and do hit me up or in the comment section, or maybe hit me up on Instagram. The link's in the description box. So yeah.